You have to hear the voice and the sound of the person who's speaking into your marriage. Do not let everybody speak into your marriage. Do not let everybody speak into your ear, even as a single person or engaged person. Oh, your marriage is going to be hard. It's going to be so tough. I'm telling you, this is what I had to go through. And this happened and this happened. I'm telling you, you're going to experience it. No, I'm not. Sometimes we experience things simply because we're expecting them. But when you go into marriage saying, I understand, it's a process, it's going to take some work, but marriage is beautiful. You're going to have a beautiful marriage. When you become a wife, there is so much that you begin to learn about yourself. And there are some things I wish I would have known before I said I do that would have helped me to better transition into marriage. There are also some things I wish I would have known earlier on in marriage that would have been very beneficial and crucial to my union and even my heart posture towards my husband. Hey babe, welcome back to the Such a Woman podcast, where we explore womanhood and femininity through the lens of faith. So if it is your desire to become the woman of your dreams and to glorify God at the same time, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, turn on those bell notifications, and make sure you tune in to the rest of this video. Let's get into it. You know, nobody can really give you the full rundown on your marriage because your marriage is your marriage. It is not going to look exactly the same across the board. However, as believers in Christ, there are principles and spiritual laws that do apply to our marriage no matter what, when it comes to ensuring that we're honoring a covenant, not having a covenant breaking heart, understanding what it is to be a woman who is now a wife. And sometimes when you are preparing to be a wife, even as a married woman, there are things that we just don't know until we realize that we need to know them. And by that time, it's kind of like we're learning as we go. And so I wrote down a list of a few things that I believe will be beneficial to you no matter your marital status. If you're married right now, I believe these things will help you to further cultivate your marriage. And if you are single, these are some things that you'll be able to work on, focus on, pay attention to, so that you're able to flow into that state of engagement and marriage. One thing I have learned is that I cannot keep pointing the finger at my husband or putting an overemphasis on things he's doing in order to ignore the image of myself. Marriage reveals you, not just your spouse. You, your heart, your mindset, how much you're willing to die for Christ, and how much you're trying to hold on to your old way of being. As a wife, it's easy to say, well, the Bible says that you're supposed to love me as Christ loves the church. Absolutely. But I've heard that used, and I've done it sometimes, where you're expecting your husband to be this absolute phenomenal man who can just handle any and everything. As women, sometimes we have an unfair playing field. And as long as a man is focusing on what a woman is not doing, or a woman is focusing on what a man is not doing, we're going to always find some type of flaws. So it's important that you take responsibility for the part and the role that you play in marriage. I do not believe in 50-50. I believe in 100-100. And what I mean by that is, I don't expect my husband to give 50% of himself to our marriage or to God. I expect him to show up 100%. And I expect myself to do exactly the same. I don't want to give 50% of myself to this covenant marriage. I want to give 100% of myself. Because when you give 50% of yourself, you're only giving half. But when you come together 100 and 100, you're coming together as one full being. It's not 50% of you and 50% of me. It's 100% of you, 100% of me, and agreeing that we're going to come 100% together. So you being a woman that is a wife does not mean that you get to focus on all of your husband's flaws and expect for him to take up the slack where you're not showing up. You have to do work, because God is going to point some things out. There are going to be some places and some actions that you do and things that are not pleasing to God, and he's going to say, okay, I heard what you said. Why would you say that? And you can't take it and blame your husband as to why you decided to cuss. Oh, well, he did this, so I cussed him out. Okay, why was that your choice of words, though? Why did you not choose a different route? Why did you not choose a soft answer to turn away wrath? Why did you choose to totally lose your cool when you found that he wasn't going to do X, Y, and Z? Why did you not take a moment to assess the situation and to understand? It's easy to try to blame, but God is not one who's going to take what you're doing wrong and put it on your husband. You are fully responsible for your actions in your marriage. And it's going to reveal you. Your relationship with God is going to show up in the way that you tend to your husband, the way that you follow his leadership, the way that you are as a wife. It's going to show up, and it's supposed to. You know, I think a lot of times we try to tote the ground and we try to get married in a safe way to where we look for all of the good things in a person. But one thing I've learned is marriage is a process of deliverance. Period. Point blank. I don't care if you marry the kindest person in the world, the richest person in the world, the healthiest person in the world. There's going to be some things that come up out of you that God is going to say, I want to work on that. And that's okay, as long as you allow God to work on that. It's beautiful because you get to be married to the person who gets to help you walk through your deliverances. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a bad process. It's not disgusting. It's not shameful. It's a beautiful process. It can get ugly, of course, but it's a beautiful process because you have someone that you trust, that you can walk hand in hand with, that you know means you well. So when you go to your husband, you're like, okay, I noticed that when you get angry, you totally shut down and you don't talk to me. That's a deliverance need. Or it's just a change of mind, right? And same for you. Your husband come to you, okay, I noticed that when you get angry, you storm out the house and you leave and you don't come back for hours. That is a place where you can be delivered, or you know, your mind can change and you get to dig deeper. Why do you leave the house? Why do you shut down? Why don't you avail yourself 100%? Where are you hurting? What is going on with you? Do you feel like you're not being loved? And this really allows the love of God to come in, because although your spouse is being used as someone who is like targeting certain things, God is extending an invitation to you through his Holy Spirit to say, hey, I want to deal with that. And once you say, okay, we can deal with it, now it's like, okay, Lord, I'm drawing near to you so that this can be dealt with. There's nothing wrong with going through that process. This is going to be a huge one, especially as a woman. Love is a decision that should be made every single day. This is not just something that is a feeling. You cannot always go by feelings, because there are going to be days that you wake up where you don't feel like extending love or being respectful to your husband, right? Because men need respect, women need love. Of course, we know they're interchangeable because we both want to be respected. Everybody wants to feel loved. But when we go by the Bible, husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church, and wives, respect your husbands. There's a reason it's written that way. Men thrive off of feeling respected. And I'm going to do another video on that, because a lot of women humiliate their husbands and belittle their husbands and try to figure out why they're not getting the husband that they really fell in love with initially, and it's because you've basically castrated him. But that's a whole nother video. But as a woman, as a wife, it's important that you understand that extending that love and that respect and that honor to your husband is not something you just want to assign to specific feelings. Because like I said, there are going to be days where your husband may not do something that you like, or he may say something, or he might not do anything at all, and you're looking like, And extending that respect and that love to him can feel hard, because your feelings are saying he's absolutely undeserving. But unconditional love, unconditional respect, we don't talk about that often. Unconditional respect to your husband is still due. Learning to go through a process where you sit with the Lord and you ask him to help you sort through your emotions. There are going to be some things that your husband is definitely there for, but he can't really put his hand on the way that the Lord can put his hand on it. And although we're wives, there's still things that the Lord wants to touch. Yes, we're covered by our husbands, but we're still God's daughters. And as a father, he wants to be able to have you come and sit with him so he can say, okay, I noticed that when you get angry, you become real disrespectful and you shut down the person that I sent to be your head. Why is that? well, because he talks to me like this, or he didn't do this, or he did that. Okay, so are you throwing a temper tantrum? Are you feeling like you're not being understood? Do you feel like he is belittling you? And if that's the case, what's a better way for you to communicate that? So really, it comes down to communication. Communication is not always about the words that you say. Communication has a lot to do with your body language. It has a lot to do with the way you walk around the house. For instance, are you communicating to your husband, if you don't do what I want you to do, you will not be able to have sex with me tonight. We won't be having sex together. And you know that your husband's someone who's very visual and he loves to see you wearing pink or paisley around the house. So instead, you wear all black and your hair's not done. You walk around in a bonnet or a baseball cap and you just look really dingy. Your teeth aren't being brushed. You start going into a state of neglect because of how you feel like your husband's not showing up. And that's communicating, one, you don't care about yourself, nor do you care about the marriage, nor do you care about your husband. And because you understand that your husband is a visual person and maybe he thrives off of being able to touch you and, just have that type of communion with you, you go the total opposite way in order to manipulate the situation. And you don't realize that you are, well, some people do, but some may not, realize that you are being a manipulator. That you are communicating manipulation in your home. That you are communicating, if you don't do what I want you to do, then what you're going to get from me is shut down. You don't have to cuss your husband out for him to feel disrespected. You don't have to bring up all the issues of his childhood for him to feel disrespected. You don't have to point out all of his flaws in order for him to feel disrespected. But what you can do is roll your neck like this every time you talk to him. You can put your middle finger up. You can lock yourself away in a room. You can have him speaking to you and just totally just be in a state where you're showing him that you're ignoring him by scrolling on your phone. Although you expect him to always be listening to you when you talk to him, there are so many different things that you can do. If he asks you to help him with something, it's a possibility that you don't do it. And sometimes it's intentional, it's not intentional. But for him, it comes off as, she's communicating to me that she does not care about the things that I ask about. And so these are different ways that you can communicate in marriage that can come off in a negative way. So learning how to properly communicate is a game changer. This is something we need to learn as humans, period. It does not matter what your marital status is. Learn how to communicate. I've learned that men and women do not communicate the same way. We can have some of the same words. We can have some of the same phrases. We can have similar thoughts, but I guarantee the way that he got to that thought versus the way that you get to a thought, the way that you use these words versus the way that he uses these words can be totally different. And one thing I'm still learning is a part of submission that comes with using my words. There are going to be times as a wife that you feel you are just not being belittled. I'm not saying that. But you feel like, ooh, I really got to suck that up and just take it. Not because he's cussing you out, not because he's hitting you, slapping you, nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. But it's like, okay, he's really passionate about this, and I'm just going to shut my mouth. There is definitely a gentleness and a softness that we possess that men desire. And there are some men who will say, well, I don't care. I don't mind my wife being just like me. Okay, we're not talking to them. We're talking to the wives that are married to men who desire that gentle, spirited, kind, nurturing woman. And your words can either be like venom or they can be like a bomb. And you're either using your words to poison your marriage and your spouse, or you're using your words to nurture and heal and to help your marriage and your spouse. If you find that you're having communications with your husband and he tends to shut down often or get extremely frustrated with you, or he says you're not listening over and over and over again, it's possible that your communication is not as clear as you would perceive it to be. Now sometimes, some, not all, some men hear things and it's like, that is not what I said and that's not how I meant it. And I know I'm being extremely clear. So it's possible that a spirit is like having his ears like this and he's not hearing you. Another level of communication is learning how to intercede for your husband, learning how to warn the spirit, learning how to be a wife who doesn't go in prayer and be like, God, I need you to do this and show my husband this and tell him that and tell him this and show him how he's doing X, Y, and Z. But no, God, remove every distracting spirit, every spirit that's coming to blind him from the reality of who you are in this marriage, from the reality of who he is, from the reality of who I am. Help him to understand, help him to see, help him to hear. Father, let him know that I love him, I adore him, I respect him. Remove every spirit of sabotage, every controlling spirit, every confusing spirit, every spirit that comes to set us back. Shut that stuff down. You have to learn how to use your words. And sometimes you will have to deal with things in prayer that you can't necessarily bring to your husband's attention at that moment. If there's something that you know you can't really address right now, take it to prayer. Not because you're trying to condemn your husband and get him locked up and incarcerated spiritually, but because you need God to work on behalf of the covenant that you guys made before him. Remind God of your covenant. Father, this is your covenant first. Yes, we stood before you and we came together and we said, I do, no matter what happens. But God, this is your covenant. You see these things that's coming against our covenant. You see the hatred, you see the words, you see the curses, you see our own selfishness, you see our own lack of understanding or ability to reason with one another in this moment. Father, you see it, so you move according to what you want to happen within this marriage. This is your covenant first. And God will do that. He will give you keys. He will give you strategies. And the reason I'm addressing the women is because I can't tell a man what to do as a man. It's easier for us to hold each other accountable because we're one of another. And I really believe that these things will help you as a wife. Knowing how to trust God, knowing when you need to speak up, knowing when you need to address an issue, knowing when you should allow something to be like, oh, that's a red flag, versus, yeah, that's not even going to bother me. Knowing how to have emotional intelligence and stability outside of anyone else. And that's a huge one. It's not your husband's responsibility to be your peace. I say this all of the time. We see posts online, I need my man to be my peace and I'm going to be his peace. Absolutely not. That's not his responsibility. Jesus Christ, he is peace, okay? If you want peace, you better lock in with him and figure out how to live in a peaceful state. Because your husband could very well be an extremely peaceful man. He can be very calm. He can be very cool. He can be very collected. He can be very chill. But if you and your soul are in a state of turmoil, all of that stuff will not matter. Certain women will try to make their husbands pay for things that people have done in the past. And I've seen it the other way around, where men are constantly trying to get their wives to prove why they're not like that other woman. The other woman that hurt them, the other woman that did X, Y, and Z. Or this husband does something to his wife and then he becomes like a tormentor because he cheated. So now he's holding her to this standard to try to like control her to not do to him what he did to her. You can't be their peace. Now you can make sure you're giving a peaceful person to your marriage, but you can't be their peace. And so you want to be a woman who is peaceful so that you present peace to your marriage. You don't want to be a cantankerous woman, a bitter woman, an evil woman, a woman who's constantly trying to get her husband to prove to her that he's going to stay and he's never going to leave, and a woman that's not going to try to rile her husband up and push buttons to try to get him to hit her. You would be surprised, possibly, on the things that you see women do to try to get a reaction and a response out of a man. And it's very damaging to many marriages. You don't want to be that woman. You want to be a woman who has a sound mind, because it really does add to the stability in marriage. As women, we look for stability with our spouse. We want our husbands to be where they say they're going to be, to do what they say they're going to do, to provide the way they say they're going to provide, and amongst many other things. But if you go into your marriage with a mind that is double-minded and you're always all over the place, it's not going to be fun for your spouse, and it's not fair. And he could become a man who's just real chill and like, okay, this is just who she is. But why? Work on your mind. Mental health is huge. And there are going to be a lot of things that are aimed at you as a wife that were not aimed at you as a single woman. I don't care what level of ministry you're in, who your friends are, who your friends aren't, how much. There's going to be things that are aimed at you simply because you have joined with another individual, with your man, okay? So your mental stability is important. I highly advise working out, going to the gym, taking care of yourself, working on you. And don't lose yourself in marriage. Take the girls' trips. Go out, go shopping, continue doing things that you love. Of course, have days that you're spending with your husband, enjoying his presence, absolutely. But do not lose yourself as a wife and a mother. It's easy to do if you've never established the routine and the lifestyle and the habit of doing so. The Bible speaks on loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Your husband, although you guys are in the same home, look at him as someone who's like a neighbor. This is someone who's beside you constantly. You guys lay in the bed together, y'all hang out on the couch together, you probably follow him around the house, he follows you, all these different things. Of course, you want to love, respect, and honor your husband. But if you don't love, respect, and honor yourself, it's going to be very hard to give that to someone else. And the way that you're able to do that for yourself is by first knowing that God loves you, that he even respects you as his creation. He honors you as his creation. Now, it's a different honor than we give him, but as his child, he bestows that upon you. Accept that for yourself. If you feel like God doesn't love you, it's going to be hard to love yourself because you're going to live out of a low esteem. And thinking that you're going to be able to give that fully to your husband, a love that you can't even accept from God or give to yourself, it's impossible. So now you're going to be putting extra demands on your husband to love you as you should be allowing God to love you. And it's unfair to him because he's like, okay, you're telling me you have these issues from childhood. You don't know how to trust anybody. You think everybody's out to do X, Y, and Z. I don't know how to contend with this. I don't know how to be the person you need because you're expecting me to fill voids that only God can fill. God is the void filler. Your husband comes as someone who says, okay, I see that you definitely have those voids. How can we work on this to make sure you don't live in a voided state? How can I be as your husband to ensure that you know that you don't have to worry about me going out here and digging up those voids again? Taking everything that was filled in those voids and pulling it out so you had to work on it again. Your husband should not be someone who is creating voids in your soul. And in order for that to not happen, first you want to choose someone who's not going to do that, who has a great character. There's going to be things that we do in marriage that's like, man, that really hurt my feelings. But it's not in a way where it's like, I'm trying to be really spiteful and tear you down or abuse you. Nothing like that. But we're human beings. There's going to be times where your husband gets on your nerves, you get on his nerves. But it's your responsibility to work on yourself so that when you meet a man, you know he's going to love you as Christ loves the church, even while still learning how to do so. Because there's still things that your husband has to learn, and you have to give him room to learn that. Allow your husband room to make mistakes, because they're going to make mistakes. And they shouldn't feel like you're going to see them less than simply because he made a mistake. Which takes me to this. Your husband needs your femininity. He needs your gentleness. He needs your touch around the house to know that this is our home. However, it feels safe here. It feels soft here. I know that my wife has been here because I can see it all throughout our home. The decor, the smell, the aroma, lighting candles. I love when my husband comes home and he's like, oh, it smells so good in here. Or when I take a shower and he comes home and he's like, ooh, you smell really good. And he can smell traces of me throughout the house because of not just my aroma, but also the candle. So I have certain smells that's very specific to rooms and even like the living room area. It's always going to feel really soft, feminine, flowy, at ease. He needs your femininity. He does not need you to be a masculine woman. He does not need the alpha woman that you give to the world, which I cannot stand that term. But he doesn't need an alpha woman. He needs his wife. He needs his lover. He needs his friend. And I've heard plenty of men, including my husband and other close friends of mine, answer a question. It's like, what type of woman do men really want? And in the midst of that question, women will be like, well, you know, I do this as a woman. I pray for him. I iron his clothes. I make him food. I do X, Y, and Z, all these different things. And every single man I've spoken to has said these words: I simply want her to be my friend. I listened to a video, and it was about this man sharing how he was married to his wife, and his wife was mean to him. And it was such, it was such a heartbreaking video, you guys, because he was talking about like how she had like sexually abused him at one point, and she did other things that were just not friendly. And he emphasized multiple times, like, she's not nice to me, she's not a friend. But I don't know his background or his whole story because he didn't get into it. I could bet that he was probably like subjected to some type of abuse when he was younger, because he kept making excuses for her abuse. And the abuse seemed to have been there from the beginning of the relationship, but he still said that she was a friend. I don't think she was really a friend ever, right? But one thing I've noticed is men emphasize wanting friends in their women. Whether it be being playful, being fun, being understanding, being a place where he can just, even though he may have hair, he may not have hair, I don't know. But being a place where he can let his hair down. Being a place where if he is bald-headed, he can feel the air go over his little scalp. Being a place where he knows that you are safe and that his heart is safe with you. I think as women, we get so focused on, well, he needs to be my safe space, and I should be able to be, you know, soft with him and all these things. And it's not that your husband is looking to be like a female in your arms or your hands, but he should know, like, I can rest here. She's not going to get mad if I share that I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z, or if I have this type of dream, I'm afraid, like, I know I need her to intercede, but if I tell her, she's going to cuss me out. Like, how many men or husbands go to their wives and they're like, okay, this is what's going on, and I'm telling you because I really need us to come together. And the wife's like, why the freak would you even tell me that? Why were you dreaming about that? Why were you talking to this person? Why? There's no understanding. There's no understanding. So then you cause that man to shut down. So what I'm saying is, understand that you're not the only one in your marriage. Your husband is not the only one who has issues. Every single person on this earth has issues, including you, including me, including us. Okay? And it's your responsibility to take responsibility for the part that you have been given responsibility over in your union, which is you showing up as a wife. And give yourself permission. This is one I'll leave you with. Give yourself permission to enjoy your marriage. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications so that you can be notified when I upload weekly. As always, I am Dale Pasco, and I will see you next time.